So thank you so much for attending this 2-day, day one training for the 2021 tax year, tax season. So I did go through Better Impact this morning for the list of individuals that did sign up. You should have received a copy of this PowerPoint through your email that you're more than welcome to look at while we go through this PowerPoint or looking on your screen. So this is our training agenda. So you'll see today we're going to go over just some housekeeping items. Then we will kind of start going into our tax law with who must file, starting the tax return, covering the filing statuses, who qualifies as a dependent, a resident versus non-resident, some income items that we see at our VITA sites, and then going into some practice where you'll be able to get some hands-on, and we'll be working on the advanced scenario 8. So again, welcome so much. Please feel free to utilize the chat function as well as the Q&A. You can send those questions to panelists. We have about 5 panelists today so that they will be able to respond to those, getting the information that's needed to you as soon as possible. About that. So also letting you know before signing up for this day one training, you should have completed the volunteer standards of conduct, which is the ethics, as well as the intake, interview, quality review, those certifications. As well as the advanced certification. As we go through these lessons through today and tomorrow, you will see that we have provided some practice lab questions. Some practice labs available that will kick off on Saturday. So you'll be able to go back into your Better Impact profile and sign up for those. As you have questions, you will be able to answer those, and you're able to come and go at your leisure. And so just letting you know, so what does the 2021-22, what does this tax season look like? During this tax season, we will be going back to in person. And so just letting you know that some of our site locations, they may be a little different. Some site locations are requiring that volunteers are vaccinated. Of course, we will require that you wear your mask, as well as our tax clients that come in will wear their masks. We will also have additional PPE equipment, which we will have those plastic shields for you to prepare the tax returns, of course, hand sanitizer. And so some of our sites are through the city of Dallas, so we will adhere to any regulations that they have for us on there. And we will have some virtual opportunities for tax preparation this tax season as well. So please, as you are taking your certification, we will be sending additional information through your Better Impact and emailing all the volunteers. And again, those practice labs, those are when you're ready to take your advanced certification. You're able to join those at your leisure. You do not have to register for any of the practice labs. So covering some of the material that you will see, have at your site or have at your disposal. So the first one is the publication 4012. If you decided that you wanted to receive a hard copy, you should have received an email. And if you still would like to receive a hard copy and you haven't received one already, you're able to come to our main office off of Swiss Avenue, and we have some of the material on the porch. They're in green bags, so you're able to come at your leisure and pick those up. And so the 4012, that is our main source of training material that we use. As you're going through the publication, you will see the tax law information as well as screenshots from TaxSlayer. It is replicating what you will see when we start preparing the actual tax return in TaxSlayer as well. So then we have our 4491. So this publication is a very detailed resource guide. So if you're wanting some more detailed information about any of the tax law subjects that we are covering, you're able to go and take a look at the 4491. This one is not a hard copy provided, so you're able to go to the irs.gov and in the search bar, type in 4491. So the 4012 and the 4491 came out around about October of last year, and so the tax season was still underway. So there are a few changes that were made during that time frame, and hence we have the 4491X. So you're able to locate this material as well on the irs.gov website by typing in 4491X, and you will see the updates that are related to the 4012 and the 4491. So this publication, the 6744, you should be familiar with if you've taken your ethics as well as your intake quality review certification already. Within this booklet, it will have the test and the retest material. It's also going to have the questions for the advanced certification. There are 9 scenarios that need to be completed. And again, we're going to cover one of those scenarios today and on tomorrow. And so I'd advise with going through this publication, you want to answer the test and the retest questions before you go into your Link and Learn and take the actual certification test, because you're not sure which question you will receive from the test or the retest. And again, we do have hard copies of the 6744 if you would like to stop by our main office. Or again, if you're a UTD student, Professor Zoltan, she does have some physical copies with her as well. And we have the publication 17. This is the Federal Income Tax Guide for Individuals. So this has all the information, tax law information, questions, and the instructions on how to complete the tax return for the 2021 tax year. So if you're wanting to go to the initial source guide, this would be where you would go to the publication 17, and you would have to go to the irs.gov to get this hard copy of information. So the next slide that you'll see, it is the intake form. It is our 13614C form. With this form, all tax clients that come through the vital locations have to complete this 13614C form in order to get their tax return prepared, which this is a very good guide for our initial point of contact, the intake, as well as you all, the tax preparer. And then for the panelists and myself as site coordinators, we use this document along with all the tax information that the clients turn in to prepare the return, review it, and ask additional questions to make sure that we complete an accurate tax return. You'll see that it asks for their personal information, their basic information. It'll go through their marital status, listing all of those that are listed in the household. And we go to the second page, it will then ask them income questions, expenses that could be then providing adjustments or deductions on their tax return, and then life events, which could also result in some additional deductions or some credits or some payments on their tax return. And you'll see to the left, there are columns that say yes, no, and unsure. So if anyone marks unsure, the intake, as well as being the tax preparer, we want to make sure, as well as the site coordinator, going back through this intake form and making sure that any questions that are marked unsure, we ask additional information to then convert that unsure to a yes or no. And then this section on the intake form, it is some additional information and questions for the tax client to complete. The majority ones at the top, we're looking at questions 1 through 4. The IRS is now provided if the tax client has another language other than English, would they like to receive written communication in that other language? Also, if someone wants to contribute to the presidential election campaign fund, this has no impact on an individual's refund or balance due. That does not change. And then if they are due a refund, they have the options of having it to go direct deposit, purchasing U.S. savings bonds, or splitting the refund in different accounts, or the default will then be a paper check. Also, if they have a balance due, would they like to have their payment come directly from their bank account and go to the IRS? And then there's some additional questions down below that they can fill out. And of course, you'll see there's an additional comment space if we have to make notes for the tax client. And the last page on the intake form, this is our consent to disclose tax return information. So this is if a client, they have the option to opt in or deny. If they opt in, they are stating that they would like for us to share their tax return information with other VITA sites. And so how this works is if I completed my return with the Dallas Tax Centers for the 2021 tax season and move to another city or state and go to another VITA site, once I complete the intake form and provide my documents, once the tax preparer enters in my social information, they're going to see my prior year 2021 information pop up on the screen. And this is very helpful because it will allow the preparer to go through and look at those prior source documents and confirm if they're still the same. So maybe did the tax client continue to work for the same employer? And at that time, we can then remove any source documents and input the new ones. So on that first page of the 13614C, at the top left, in addition to completing out this form, the taxpayer and spouse, if married, filing jointly, will need to provide a valid identification as well as their social or ITIN information. So what are some valid identification that we accept? The U.S. driver's license, employer ID, school ID, U.S. state ID, military ID, national ID, visa, or passport. And when we say valid, these are unexpired documents that need to be provided. If there are any exceptions or deviations from this, it is up to the site coordinator at their discretion. After we put the information in TaxSlayer, it will then produce the form 1040. Okay, and so with the 1040, after inputting all of this information in, the 1040 is a summary of all the taxpayers, their income, their adjustments, their deductions. And the 1040, consists of a 2-page document. And so the first page, it mimics what we see on the 13614C. Pretty much that has their taxpayers, their name, their address, as well as the dependents and the income information. And then we have page 2 of the tax return of the form 1040. After we gather all of the income information and determine if if their client qualifies for any credits, or any other taxes that have to be applied, we determine then if they have a refund or an amount due. In addition to this form 1040, the first and second page, there may be some additional schedules that get attached with the tax return. The first one that we will see, it is the Schedule 1. And so we went in, so in addition to the form 1040, the page 1 and 2, as we input this information into TaxSlayer, which is a program that we will be using to prepare the returns, we may see some schedules attached with the form 1040. So this is through all the tax client information that we have gathered. And so in Schedule 1, you may see additional income and adjustments to income on here. So on the form 1040 on that first page, you will see that there is a line that lists other income that doesn't have details such as W-2 or pension and annuities. So this is where we see that additional income, and we're going to see the total amount come to line 10, and that's going to roll over to the form 1040. So this is the first page of the Schedule 1, and then we go to the second page, which has our adjustments to income. Adjustments to income are those deductions that subtract from our income. And you can see we have quite a bit for a 2021 tax season, but we're only going to cover the ones that we see that commonly affect our tax clients. And so with this part 2 of Schedule 1, we're going to get the total amount on line 26, and it will roll over to the form 1040, page 1 as well. Some clients, they may come up with this Schedule 2, which is the additional taxes. And again, like I mentioned, these are taxes that are addition to the federal tax that a client may owe. So this is actually adding on the amount due that they may owe or subtracting a refund that was previously indicated on the tax return. And so we're going to cover some of these taxes that we may see at some of our site locations. And then the Schedule 2, page 2, it just lists some other taxes as well. And so the last schedule that we have is the form 1040, Schedule 3, additional credits and payments. You're going to see part 1. These are our non-refundable credits. So you're going to learn later in the lesson, probably on tomorrow, that non-refundable credits just reduce the tax liability to 0, which is still a good thing. On there. So a person, they may not owe as much, or they then may produce, if they have some payments and other refundable credits, that may give them a refund. So we're going to go over some of the common non-refundable credits that apply to us. And then on part 2, we're going to go over the other taxes and refundable credits on here that are listed on a tax return. So this is either reducing a person's tax liability or providing them with a refund. And so this is the information that prints out. These are the copies that we give over to the taxpayer for them to keep for their records. And this is what gets transmitted to the IRS. Right here now we have our VITA links and passwords. So you can see at the very top we have the IRS website, the irs.gov. That is where we receive all of our information and tools that we need. So if you click on the irs.gov, like I mentioned earlier, you're able to get those publications. You're able to see the highlights of what's going on at the IRS. You can see that they're gearing up to start the tax season and accepting returns on January the 24th. I also like to look on there and look at their news tab on there. So the irs.gov, that is our central point to get a lot of information. Now, for as our VITA for the Dallas Community Tax Centers, we do have a YouTube page. Later this week or next week, we're actually going to be providing this webinar on our YouTube page for those of any of your classmates that were unable to attend the training. They can go to our YouTube page, Dallas Community Tax Centers. and they are able to get this information to look at the training at their leisure. Again, then we have on number 3, the VITA Central on our Link and Learn certification. On here, this is where you should be familiar with if you've taken your ethics as well as your intake exam, and you're going to go back there to take your, you're going to go back and take that advanced certification as well. And so then you're going to see number 4 is a practice lab. So that's where we're going to be going into later on today with our training. So this is where you're going to take all the information, the tax law that we have taught you up to that point today, and you're going to be able to look at a scenario, look at those source documents, and start inputting a tax return. Our practice lab mimics the TaxSlayer software that you will be working when we open up later this month in early February. And so we utilize the Volunteer Hub, the Better Impact. You use that today. You use that to sign up for this training, and you're going to use that to sign up for your volunteer slots. You get to pick the location that is nearest you. And then when we also offer some virtual tax preparation options, you'll be able to sign up for those as well. Wanting to look at our website, we have the DallasTaxCenters.org. And we also post a lot of our information on Facebook. This webinar, it is actually on Facebook Live. So that's where we kind of have some little issues displaying this webinar live and going on Facebook Live. So if anyone is missing out on the webinar, they can catch us on Facebook Live and get this information as well today and tomorrow.